It is Bigfoot shaped.
Well, it's got a little heel, and then there's...
Yeah. It must have just got a drink.
Oh.
Yeah, it looks pretty fresh.
Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Organization, we're taking you to a Bigfoot sighting location. We're going to show you around the area. We're setting up camp between two Bigfoot sightings that were reported to us. There's also a couple of Bigfoot sightings in the same area that were reported to the BFRO. This particular sighting is Michael Nelson's. We're going to take you to the spot on Clear Creek, and then we're going to take you to the other one on LaBarge Meadows. We're camped directly between both of them on LaBarge Creek. Here goes the sighting report. Michael Nelson writes to RMSO, "Dear Kelly, here is my information on my sightings and a little of my background. First, my background. I was raised on a ranch in southwest Wyoming near Kemmerer, Wyoming. I was born in 1952 and my sightings occurred when I was around 9 or 10 years old. My great-grandparents moved to Wyoming in the 1880s, when it was still a territory. They came to the Hams Fork Valley from St. Charles, Idaho, near Bear Lake. Prior to that, my ancestors came to Utah first with Mormon immigrants and sent to the Bear Lake area by Brigham Young. My great-grandparents started a homestead from which our ranch was started. We ran mainly livestock. At the highest point, we had approximately 350 cattle and 14,000 sheep. Even though I worked with the cattle, I enjoyed working with the sheep the most. With that, I would spend many days and nights with my dad on the Bridger Teton, where we had sheep allotments in the spring and summer. When I was younger, around 12 and 14, I had my own pack string of horses that guided herds up the trails in the allotments. I did this until I joined the Air Force during the Vietnam era. Needless to say, when I was 9 or 10, I knew the wild animals that lived in the forest and high plains. I knew and dealt with the bears, coyotes, mountain lions, lynx, wolves. There were and have always been wolves in the Bridger Teton forest, contrary to belief. Moose, deer, elk, and many others. So when I had my sightings, I knew what I was looking at. I was over 9 years old when my first sighting occurred. My father, my sisters, my brother, and I were camped on Clear Creek. It's a drainage of LaBarge Creek. My mother was not with us. She was in a hospital in Salt Lake City. She was fighting cancer at the time and not expected to live. But live she did, until her death at 90 years old in 2016. My dad had left camp early to go check on one of the herds and move them to a new feeding location. It was still dark outside, but I was awake and up as usual with him to see him off. My two sisters and brother were still sleeping. My brother was 1.5 years older than me. My sisters were 4 and 5 years older than me. After my dad left on his horse, I decided to walk to the creek and get a drink of water. Clear Creek was not a large creek, so I would get on my hands and knees and bend over to get a drink. The creek is not much more than a foot wide at this time of year, midsummer. I got my drink and still on my knees, I looked up straight into two of the largest dark black eyes I have ever seen. I was less than 12 inches away from this thing's face. We just stared at each other. How long? I don't remember. His face was dark-skinned, not dark black, but grayish black. I don't remember a lot of hair on his face. What amazes me to this day, I did not panic, and it did not frighten me. I slowly got up and followed, still looking at me. He was enormous. How tall, I can't say, but I had to bend my head back to look up at his face. I looked at its body, and that's when it turned around and started to walk. It started to walk up the hill opposite side of the creek from me. His body was covered with dark hair. It was dark black looking hair to me. I turned and walked back to camp. About 3 or 4 steps, then fear kicked in, and I ran back to the tent yelling, "Monster! Monster!" waking up my siblings. They saw how shocked I was, and we closed the wall tent doors and hid in the tent all day till my dad returned. I told my dad when he got back, and he just said it was probably a bear or a moose. I do not remember much after my dad returned. A few months later, we were again camping near LaBarge Creek at the LaBarge Meadows. No tent this time. We had our sleeping bags laid out side by side along the pickup truck. My dad near the driver's side front tire, my oldest sister by the driver's side door. my brother and I, and my younger sister by the rear tire on the driver's side next to me. I woke up in the middle of the night. The sky was clear. I remember seeing the stars and the moonlight, which lit up a large man-like figure that was leaning over, looking at my sister next to me. I didn't move, say anything, or breathe. I just stared out from under my sleeping bag cover. The thing was, again, huge, and I could hear others walking around nearby, but did not see them. I could hear it taking deep breaths, and no other sounds. It slowly stood up on its two legs and walked away. I slowly slid deeper inside the sleeping bag and hid the rest of the night. I didn't tell anybody this time until I was an adult. Then I told my wife and kids, and my mom and dad, sister and brother. This all would have occurred prior to 1961 and the Patterson film. I'd never heard or thought about Bigfoot or Sasquatch. It wasn't until I heard and saw the Patterson film and then the frozen body of the monster in the freezer that came through town that I could have put a name with these creatures or monsters. I remember I was around 16 when that show came through. You got to go into this trailer and take a close look at the creature. The lid of the freezer was open and it was covered in ice. You could see parts of its body through the ice fairly well. I thought it was cool. It really did look like the real thing. My sister's sighting happened further away, much further away. It happened in the 1970s. She was married, had 2 kids, and they were up at Hams Fork camping. She and her husband apparently were fighting, and he was being a jerk as normal. They loaded up and started down Hams Fork Road to come home. On the area of the road called the Switchbacks, she said this creature jumped out on the road. Just behind them, stood in an Arnold Schwarzenegger-style stance, glaring at them. She said it had large red eyes. She said it looked very mad or angry and stepped towards them. Her husband stepped on it and sped away. I often wonder if their argument is what brought the creature out to stare at them. That's the sighting of ours. I believe my grandfather had some also, but never talked about them. All the time I knew him, he would become extremely agitated if we were still anywhere near the forest at night. You could actually see the fear on his face. It was so bad, he would ask my father or me, whoever he was with, to drive faster and get out of there. He was born on the original homestead on Beaver Creek in a log cabin. When he was young, when the Shoshone were allowed to leave the reservation to hunt the Hams Fork Valley in the early 1900s, they would come by the cabin and wait outside the door. My great-grandmother would hide him and his sister, at that time, under a big table and put a tablecloth over it. She was told by my great-grandfather, give them some bread and flour, and they would go on their way. That's about all for now. I have only told family members. If you have any questions, let me know, and I will try to answer them. If you guys are ever this way in Kemmerer, stop by and see us. I will even take you to the nearest areas and give you a map. We, my wife, and I enjoy your videos. Keep up the good work. Take care, Mike Nelson. Thank you very much, Mike Nelson. We enjoyed your sighting report, and thank you for showing us the area. We know this is a Bigfoot sighting hotspot because there's other Bigfoot sighting reports recorded in this area. There's a couple recorded in the area by BFRO. Some guys hiking coming down off the mountain to the trailhead thought they saw 3 people messing around their car. Turns out when they got a little bit closer, it was 3 Bigfoot hanging out by their car, and then took off when the Bigfoot realized that they were there. That's one of the sightings. Another Bigfoot sighting down there happened when 2 bear hunters were working their way back hiking to their bear bait station, and the Bigfoot tossed a log down the mountain in their direction. So a very aggressive sighting to these bear hunters. Obviously did not appreciate the bear hunters in the area. Perhaps the Bigfoot was interested in the bait station. I don't know. So there's more sightings in the area than just yours. I knew about those other sightings, so when I heard about yours, I needed to come out to the area and have a good look around. Really appreciate it. I hope you guys liked a look around a Bigfoot sighting hotspot near the LaBarge Creek area, Clear Creek. all the way down to Kemmerer, and all the way over to the Afton or Star Valley area. Just such a great place for Bigfoot sightings. I hope you enjoyed. Keep on watching. We're going to keep on squatching.
Whoa, his antlers are huge.